We can close this file using File Close. And then we'll open macro example 2. Now there's a story behind this file, and it's a true story. The lady from the local Chamber of Commerce called me up one day and said, "Hey Bill, I needed to take Excel data and do a mail merge to Word. Can you teach me how to do that?" Well, I was really busy that day, and I didn't have time to teach someone how to do a mail merge. And so I said, "Just send me the file and I'll take care of it for you." Well, the file arrives, and unfortunately the file is in completely the wrong format. If you've ever done a mail merge from Excel to Word, you know that the name has to be in column A, the address in column B, and the city, state, zip in column C. This data has the wrong orientation. I would have to go through and use edit, copy, edit, paste, special, transpose over and over and over again 150 times to solve this, and really, at this point, I was just sorry that I ever answered the phone. But this is a perfect example of something that we can create a short macro that will automate the process of solving one name. Now, I want you to sit back and watch me record the macro the wrong way the first time, and then I'll show you why it's wrong, and we'll learn how to do it the right way. I'm going to select the first name in cell A1. I'll go up and start the macro recorder. The name I'll use for this macro is fix1name, and I'm going to assign it to a shortcut key of Control-A. Now I hear what you're saying. You're saying, well, wait, Control-A already does something pretty important. This is a macro that we're going to run 150 times in the next 5 minutes, and then it's going to go away. It will never be used again. We have choices whether we want to store the macro in this workbook or in the personal macro workbook. Because this is a one-time use macro and I don't want it available forever, I'm going to choose this workbook from the dropdown. I really don't have to add a description because the macro is going to disappear a few minutes from now. I've kind of rehearsed in my head exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to go down to cell A2, cut the address, and paste it to B1. I'm then going to cut the city from A3, paste it to C1, and delete rows 2, 3, and 4. The final step is I want to make sure that I choose the name for the next person. All right, ready to go? I'm hoping my manager doesn't call in the next 2 minutes. I'm ready to click OK and start recording this. I'll use the arrow key to go down one cell, Control X to cut, the arrow keys to go up, over, and Control V to paste. Use the arrow keys again, Control X to cut, up and over to paste. I'm now going to go down to row 2. I need to delete row 2, row 3, and row 4. The delete is located on the home ribbon, and the great thing about this mouse movement is that the macro recorder does not record me moving up and selecting the home ribbon. I'll open the delete dropdown and choose delete sheet rows, delete, delete sheet rows, delete, delete sheet rows. Now the macro is perfect. I ended up with the cell pointer on the next record, ready to fix that name. I'll stop recording. Okay, if everything worked, I should hit Control A and we'll be good to go. Oh no, what a disaster. Now this is what happens to most people when they record a macro. I mean, it made a lot of sense. It was a really simple macro. We only moved a couple of cells around and deleted 3 rows, but it completely destroyed the next name. In fact, if I hold down Control A macro is very good at very quickly doing things, either the wrong thing or the right thing. What's going on? Let me explain to you exactly what Excel is doing when we recorded this macro. I'm going to use pseudocode here. I'm not going to tell you exactly the real VBA code, but what Excel said, it said, go to cell A2, take A2 and copy it to B1. Then go to cell A3 and copy it to C1, and then delete rows 2, 3, and 4. Well, that's a macro that is only good for fixing the very first record in this workbook. That's a crazy macro. By the time I've recorded it, I've already fixed the first record. It is completely useless, but it's the macro that you get if you just record a macro using the record macro button. Okay, now if you follow the instructions, you have not done anything and your file is perfect. I need to do file close and reopen. Do I want to save the changes? Definitely not. Okay, so now I'm back to my original file. Again, select the name in A1, and I'd like you to do this with me to record a macro. Let's take a look on the developer ribbon. Before we record the macro, there's a button directly underneath the record macro button called Use Relative References. Now I applaud Microsoft for actually putting words next to this button. For the last 10 years, we've had the button and no one understood what the heck that icon meant, and there was no chance anyone would ever think to hit that button. Relative References says instead of recording my exact actions, such as select cell A2 and paste to B1, it tells Excel to record the process of going down one cell, cutting, going up and over a cell and pasting. Go down to left 1, cut, up to, over to, paste. And then the process of going down 1 row, deleting, deleting, deleting. That simple action of hitting the relative reference button will make this macro work. Very frustrating that the macro recorder gets you 95% of the way there, but if you don't know to hit relative references, you're going to have a horrible experience with a macro recorder. All right, so click the record macro button. Again, we can give this a macro name of fix1 name. Shortcut key of Control-A. The reason I use Control-A is because Control and A are very close to each other on the keyboard. It allows me to hit that 150 times without any problems. And again, store the macro in this workbook. We'll click OK. And the very first thing you should do is turn on relative references. Now, relative references is a toggle. Now that I've turned it on, it will stay on for the rest of this Excel session. You need to make sure that you don't click the relative references button every time you want to use relative references because you might actually turn it off. Provided your relative references button is on, let's go ahead and record the macro. Use the keyboard to hit the down arrow key and then Control-X to cut. Use the arrows to go up and over, Control-V to paste. Use the arrow keys to go down to the city in A3, Control-X to cut, arrow keys to go to C1 and paste. Use the arrow keys to move back to cell A2 and grab the mouse, go to the home ribbon, and choose Delete, Delete Sheet Rows, Delete Sheet Rows, Delete Sheet Rows. And you'll notice that we are now on the next name. Time to stop recording, so we'll hit the Stop Recording button in the lower left-hand corner of the screen. This would be a great time for you to save the workbook. Anytime that you record a macro, you should save the workbook just in case your macro is about to destroy your data. In my case, I'm pretty sure it's going to work, so I'm going to hit the Control-A button to see if I can fix the next name. Wow, that's perfect. Now that I see that it works, I can hit the Control-A button a few times. Wow, those are perfect. Let me just hold down the Control-A button. Look at that. 200 names fixed in 30 seconds. It took me a minute to record, 30 seconds to run, and this problem has completely gone away. Now, I'm not so sorry that I answered the phone when the lady from the Chamber of Commerce called. However, if I didn't know how to record a macro and if I didn't know about that relative recording button, I would have been sunk. I would have been sitting here doing edit, paste, transpose over and over and over again. And by the time I was done, I would have been completely frustrated and ready never to do business with the Chamber of Commerce again. Well, there you go. 2 simple macro examples. The first one, remember, where we did not have to move the cell pointer at all. In that case, it doesn't matter whether we're recording relative or not. But anytime that you're going to move the macro, you want to think about the process and probably use relative recording.